Bill Weir, who is a far left radical climate activist, is the chief climate correspondent on CNN. And he covers, as a result, EPA, and now Lee Zeldin at EPA. And he went on Caitlin Collins' show late last week with a, quote, fact check of an EPA press release about what they're doing over there as they try to reform or really kind of undo some of the extreme, quote, reforms that Joe Biden put into place. Here is what he reported.
They were putting out press releases with such a flurry, about 31 different actions and rollbacks, that some of them had typos or placeholders at the top. We have one of those there. Trump EPA announces 000. You can see there. It's sort of shoot first, fill out the press release later.
EPA Administrator, the guys are shaking their heads for the listening audience. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin took to X the very next day, writing another media fact check face plant, where the fact checker doesn't have the slightest clue what he is talking about. And he says, these aren't zeros, they are the letter O. O is not a typo, says Lee Zeldin. 40 CFR, Code of Federal Regulations, Part 60, Subpart 0000 or Quad O is a federal regulation under the Clean Air Act. And then goes on to explain exactly what they are doing. They're letting people know that they're about to have open debate on whether the EPA can, as Zeldin feels, change those increased standards that the Biden administration put on, I think it's methane producers. But in any event, Charlie, your thoughts on Bill Weir's so-called fact check as the CNN resident expert on these issues?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you used the word expert, because for years now, there's been this back and forth in the courts between the law as it was written by Congress and the EPA's interpretation of it. Thankfully, many of the cases have gone the way of congressional will in recent years. But every time they do, we get these dissents from people like Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor, in which they laud the experts in the community and say we should just be giving them carte blanche to do whatever they want. And then we see one on television absolutely beclowning himself, and we realize why we have the system that we have. It's very, very embarrassing. It is also what happens when, for years, you know that the media is on your side and just will reflexively back you and publish your talking points as if they were facts. You become lazy and flabby. I think, the average press secretary for a Democrat is worse than the press secretary for a Republican, because they're just not used to doing the work. They're just not used to the hostility that sharpens people. That was a good example of it. And I'll just use this opportunity to say, Lee Zeldin is one of the best of the nominations that Donald Trump made, and seems to be doing an incredible job at EPA, not only in policy terms, but in making sure that all of the work that he's doing is legitimate and the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. I think when this administration is over and we look back on the story of it, we will say that the EPA appointment and conduct was probably one of the best parts of the whole thing.
This is what happens, Rich, when your left-wing activism blinds your obligations as a reporter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we all have our moments, and I wouldn't have known what all those O's are, but I'm not an environmental reporter. So this is hugely embarrassing. And Lee Zeldin, I agree with Charlie, he's great. Now, you got to be careful, because the first time around, a lot of great stuff happened to the EPA as well, and it all got reversed because it wasn't careful enough. So hopefully Lee Zeldin is dotting his I's and crossing his T's there. But I wouldn't think like O's would be a natural stand-in for something that's going to be filled in. Usually you'd leave something blank, you'd have underscores, or the journalistic way to do it is a capital T and a capital K. So Weir should have been a little more
spelled wrong,
a little more careful here.
Here's the thing, though. So this guy, Bill Weir, I don't know if you guys are, probably nobody's familiar with him because no one knows who he is. But being in the business and on cable news, I've been watching this guy for years, and he is as rabid a partisan as they come. He was at ABC, now he's at CNN. And I want you to know just how rabid. Okay, let me just start with his climate activism and just radicalism, all right? Charlie and Rich, you both have young kids. Imagine doing this to your child on Earth Day, all right? He published a letter on CNN.com to his son, River, marking the child's 4th Earth Day, where he warned of mass extinction. And here's what he wrote. April 22nd, 2024. This is just this past April. There are still dark days, to be sure. And since you love animals so much, I can't bring myself to explain just how many of your favorites are on extinction's brink. And while technology in the hands of the soulless can divide us, it can also connect the helpers in ways that can save entire ecosystems. This is a follow-up to his 2020 version of his letter to his then newborn son, where he wrote, quote, "The milk in your bottle was warmed by dirty ancient fuels. And as a result, you will learn to walk on a planet that has never been this hot for humans."
Oh my gosh.
Charlie, is that what you wrote to your babes when they were first born?
It's not. You know, the other thing, aside from being borderline child abuse in its content, it's so overwrought. It's embarrassing. That's what I would write as a parody. If you told me, you know, there are people who do this, come up with the letter, I think I'd be nervous about publishing that for fear that it seemed unbelievable. It's just absurd.
Your dirty milk by terrible fossil fuels. So that's how he talks to his son. Rich, you have a newborn baby. I'm sure you're writing her letters just like that. You probably have to run right now to do it.
Yeah. And what does Weir give his kids? Like a dead polar bear? Sorry, you know, dead stuffed polar bear. Sorry, this polar bear's dead, but you know, that's just the world you live in. This is one of these beats, Megyn. Like every climate reporter in the country, probably, if they haven't written those sort of things to the kids, they think it, right? It's like covering gender or misinformation or disinformation. There's not one honest, straight, objective journalist who ever ends up on a beat like that.
Yes. All right. So he ultimately was forced, after being publicly shamed, to issue a correction on CNN, which he did. That's good. That's a bare minimum that's required of people. But if you look at this guy's actual reporting, taking away his mental deficiencies as evidenced in those letters, it's, of course, completely biased, pro-Obama, Biden, anti-Trump. And I've got to just show you these couple of examples before we go. All right. Here he is. Here, just see if you can tell me, if you can spot the difference in the way he reported on Trump, which we'll play first, versus Obama, which we went back and just pulled some of his coverage of the Obama inauguration. We're going to play these two back to back, 24 and 25.
These are such vital years right now that we're dealing with. And in this new administration, not only ambivalent about the science, but almost antagonistic. So we'll see who is able to hold the line.
Now, for anybody who remotely cares about land and water and animals and climate, this is an obvious choice. They live in two different planets. On planet Trump, there are no gigafires out west. Miami is not flooding. There are no experts telling us that this is just the beginning of a new normal. I think things are bad now. Imagine the hell on Earth that would be 3 degrees of global warming. Well, Donald Trump is basically saying, go to hell, go to that hell, because he doesn't want to even acknowledge the existence of the problem.
Well, Charlie, we know that wind can make a cold day feel colder, but can national pride make a freezing day feel warmer? It seems to be the case, because regardless of the final crowd number estimates, never have so many people shivered so long with such joy. From above, even the seagulls must have been awed by the blanket of humanity.
What? He's a terrible writer. Also, was he trying to do a Churchill thing? I mean, that right at the end, he was trying to paraphrase Churchill.
About the seagulls,
so
or the never before?
No, he said never before, which is a line that Winston Churchill used after the Battle of Britain, an air campaign that quite literally saved Britain from Nazi invasion in 1940. So he's transplanted that into a description of the inauguration of, I presume, Joe Biden.
No, Barack Obama, 2009.
Oh, Barack Obama. Okay, even better.
Of course.
It's just that is such a great example, though, of how these people's priorities are all out of whack. Literal existential survival of the British Empire gets moved over onto the same plane as Barack Obama becomes president. Just insanity.
Could you believe that, Rich?
Yeah, it's a parody. And they can't just say that, the science suggests if the projections are true that 50 years from now, 100 years from now, if we keep warming this way, natural disasters will marginally be worse, right? I mean, it's always hell is upon us. Every single natural disaster is directly caused by climate change. So it's kind of like COVID, in that the people who are most supposedly committed to the so-called science get over their skis and ignore the science to make the most hysterical, politicized case for the policy outcomes they want.
You don't go out and buy a life jacket when the boat is already sinking, and you don't buy gold when the economy has already collapsed. Clearly, others are heeding this advice, as gold hit all-time highs already this year. It's not too late for you too, and you could have Birch Gold help you diversify into physical gold. Birch Gold specializes in helping you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold for no money out of pocket. One recent 5-star review said Birch Gold was, quote, knowledgeable, helpful, non-pressure. Get your free info kit on gold by texting the letters MK to the number 989898. There's no obligation, just useful information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews, just text MK to 989898 and let the experts at Birch Gold help you secure your future today with gold. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.